How many of you ever bought a book from Beacon Press? Wonderful. Beacon Press has long been the UU's voice to the wider world, and I'm happy to see that the press continues to do good work and to flourish. And here to tell you about it this morning is Beacon Press's director, Helen Atwine. Helen, come up and talk to us.
Well, thank you, and talk about a hard act to follow. That was the most inspiring, the most electric speech. I'm so proud to be the director of Beacon Press, working with this dynamic and wonderful administration. So, it's a real privilege, as always, to report to you on the work of Beacon Press. And like the entire association, we have also been very focused on confronting the systemic issue of white supremacy and working to dismantle it. First, I want to affirm that books do matter. We're reaching a lot of people. These are just two examples from our comprehensive social impact report, which you can read on our website. We're jumping a little ahead here, but, oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, better? Yeah, I'm so sorry. Sometimes our books work in ways we couldn't foresee, like these two congressional interventions on gun violence and prison reform, both issues, of course, which disproportionately impact communities of color. Beacon first published this book 25 years ago. 2 years before I came to work as director. After all that time, we've managed to pull back all the rights that were licensed, so we now have the hardcover, paperback, ebook, and the audiobook, all with new material. This book may be older than some of you listening to me, but I promise it will speak to you as powerfully as it did to readers of all races and generations 25 years ago. And Cornel West continues to be on the front lines in the fight for racial justice. We just saw his photo with our president on the screen just a few minutes ago. Today, we are seeking out new activists with new ideas and perspectives who have a lot to teach us about what true racial equity looks like and how we might achieve those goals. In fact, it was Cornel West who called out to us the work of Charlene Carruthers. We're learning more about what it takes to build community, to honor people, and to find common ground. In Crystal Fleming's memorable title, we need to learn how to be less stupid about race. We're examining closely what steps we need to take, all of us, to have more inclusive and equitable society in our churches, in our workplaces, and even in our friendship circles. Many of you have seen, we can go on to, Robin DiAngelo in action and know the power of her ideas. For the first time, and for us, she put those ideas into an accessible, inexpensive book. We couldn't bring her to Kansas City, but we do have the book at the In Spirit bookshop in the exhibit hall, and we will try very hard to bring Robin back for workshops at the next GA. It's a really terrific book. We're very, very proud of it. And we couldn't have done it without a big assist from UUA staff. One of Beacon's most celebrated strengths is in putting a historic lens on current issues and reframing the master narrative. These books look closely at the legacy of civil rights movements and at what we can learn from the outrages of our past, the terrible injustices we visited on African Americans, as in medical experimentation on slaves in the 1840s, or the Army hanging at Leavenworth all 8 of the black soldiers on death row while all 9 of the white soldiers were freed. and this in the 1960s. Our authors worked to surface that history, to lift up those stories so we can learn from them. And so we can learn how history teaches us to resist in the political arena and even on our playing fields. Many of you know our Revisioning American History series on the next slide. Many of you know our Revisioning American History series through there it is, Roxanne Dunbar-Ortiz's revolutionary book, An Indigenous Peoples' History of the U.S. That book has now sold over 100,000 copies. That's something to applaud. These are the latest books in that series. The Paul Ortiz was just published, and the Dinah Barry Callie Gross is coming out later this year, again, upending the master narrative. And while we focus on these urgent issues of racial equity, we're also publishing books that address the full range of social justice issues that we're all concerned about. Part of the struggle for racial equity is the fight for economic justice, workers' rights, good jobs, and good pay. And of course, it all starts with our public schools and making sure all children are afforded a quality education, not the Betsy DeVos vision of privatized, religiously affiliated, and even cyber charter schools that have white supremacy built into their very fabric. All the issues you see displayed here are part of building a just society. So I give you these words from the Reverend Barbara. We need you to stand up again, to speak up again, to come together again until justice is realized, love is actualized, hate is demoralized, war is neutralized, racism, classism, and religious bigotry is marginalized, and the beloved community is actualized. We have two powerful authors about to speak at workshops. I hope you can join us at one of them. And I want to say that we couldn't do this work without your support and the support of the UUA and the VEACH program at Shelter Rock. And for the past 2 decades, we've been lucky enough to have Tom Halleck helping us guide our work daily. Tom, stand up. In July, he leaves us, but not entirely. He will be on our Board of Advisors. We can't thank you enough. And thank you all for listening and for supporting our work.